And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Welcome back to a new video. And today I'm going to make an attempt to explain the emission standards rollbacks that are taking place and how they apply. And in particular, for those of you that live in California or the other states that have adopted California's, forgive me, environmentalists, insane overreach and ridiculous rules, and how they really affect us all. And no, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden that I can't be pulled over and state refed for my straight pipe. I still have my cats, so maybe that's not straight pipe. It's kind of straight pipe. Soul performance exhaust on my Lamborghini. I could still get pulled over, I could still get state refed, and I could still get in trouble for modding my car. These are still in place. So there's a lot of confusion, and I worry that there's a whole lot of people out there thinking it's time to just go hog wild and rip off your catalytic converters and run like maniacs in California and the other states and just, you know, like blow fire flames out the back of your exhaust pipe. So no, that's not what's been happening. And would I like that? Selfishly, yes. As a car guy, absolutely. But as a reasonable human being that's open to hearing other ideas, that's looking for compromise at all times, whenever possible, within reason, I think that I'm willing to entertain some reasonable guardrails that keep us from going back to the days of Southern California and, frankly, any big metropolitan area having smog days where kids couldn't go outside and play. So forget about the global warming stuff. I'm on the fence about that whole thing. And I'm always the guy saying, well, if we can err on the side of caution, but not give up too much, then why not? What the hell? Let's go ahead and just not, look an opportunity to do better. But when I know that there's political agendas on both sides that skew everything to a place of generally greed-driven motivation, then they lose me. And I just go, forget it all then. And regardless of what side you're on, this is not a political video, every single time I start digging and going back and tracing the money, I end up losing complete passion and desire to support these overreaching decisions and, frankly, mandates that are being pushed on us. And the more you dig, the more you read, and stop watching the news and stop listening to the propaganda by either side and anywhere out there, because everybody's got a motivation, and just start digging, you start to realize that, well, okay, maybe there's a happy medium here. What I do believe is not a happy medium was a mandate in California to have electric vehicles being the vast majority, if not everything, by 2035. And that mandate was insane. And frankly, it was putting so much pressure on the automakers because it's hard for them to make just cars for California and then for Arizona or Texas or somewhere, completely different cars. And it goes back to that whole 50-state vehicle thing. Now, here's where I'm at. I had to give up a car 2 years ago because it got shipped to me as a 49-state car. I found out later, and this is something I wish I would have learned, that the only difference between my 49-state car and a 50-state car was that when the smog certification guy scanned the barcode on the sticker under the hood, it would notify Sacramento that car cannot be registered and sold in California, and screwed me badly. But if that sticker happened to be missing or replaced with another sticker, that car passed smog perfectly fine because it was the same exact car. Basically meaning that somebody had to pay somebody, meaning California, to be able to let that car come into California. Now, I believe that comes down to how many cars maybe they let come in that are gross polluters or gas guzzlers. I don't know. What I know is money's involved. So what happened here? What's going on with the president and his decisions recently, and what does it really mean to all of us? So I'm going to read this stuff to you so that we can all be on the same page and so I don't screw it up, because I want to at least try to send some good information out there. Yes, Trump did act to end electric vehicle mandates and roll back emission standards during his 2025 current administration, which is right now. And what that means is what he calls is the mandates and the overreaching of the insane level of CAFE standards. Are CAFE standards still in place? Yes, they are. Now, here's something, if you go read, there's an article in the New York Times, which I'm not going to pay for, but there are things being discussed in our government which lead us to believe that while California's suing and others are suing, saying, no, we want to still have our exemption to be able to come up with our own mandates, if you will, or emissions requirements, that the decision could be made, okay, we're just not going to fine people. Well, that is a whole new, or just make it illegal to fine them. So that's a whole new legal fight. So read more about that on your own, but Trump's not giving up on this stuff. And basically what this means is California and its partner states lost federal waivers needed to enforce their own tighter EV emission standards, meaning the deadlines by 2035, 2030, 2035, you got to have a certain amount of electric vehicles being sold compared to gas vehicles. This was putting massive pressure on everybody, which was forcing these EVs down our throat, which is why they called them EV mandates. There was not an EV mandate, if you will. EV sales mandates and plug-in vehicle targets set by the Biden administration were effectively dismantled. Trump also signaled plans to halt EV tax incentives and federal emissions rules, shifting focus toward fossil fuel production. However, these changes are being legally challenged. California has already filed suit aiming to uphold its own mandates plus those of other states. And unfortunately, California is big enough to where if California wins that we're back into the same BS again. And forgive me for saying BS, but I think it is, to where automakers are stuck having to either build different cars for different states or having to build one car for every state and going back down that road. The way this looks right now is he's probably going to win because they're not going to give up. And when I say he, I mean Trump's probably going to win this. And having lived in California most of my life, except when I was in the military, there's overreach happening every day here. And those of you that comment all the time that why don't you move out of there? How could you live there? How could you live in California, California? I hear it all. As though I should move to some place that is freezing freaking cold 4 or 5 months out of the year with snow and ice and I can't drive my cars or go outside. Or I should move somewhere where it's 9,750 degrees and melt every single year in the summertime. Or I should go somewhere where there's no beach, where there's no mountains. I've lived these other places when I was in the Air Force, and I could tell you, I've been in Florida, and it's humid as hell, and you're sweaty. I love Florida. I think everything about that state is just awesome to watch on TV. But I literally spent a week there one day, because that's what it felt like because of the humidity. I'm sorry, none of you can convince me that the extra money I would keep in my pocket would be worth moving out of California. So my hope is that some sanity gets brought to California when it comes to this stuff. The other thing I wanted to address here is, for the Californians, are smog checks still required? As far as I know, they are. As many of you know, I purchased a Subaru Legacy with the intention of giving it away to a close friend of ours, who ultimately, after keeping it for 2 weeks, realized he could not accept the car for familial political reasons, and I understood why. And he gave the car back. So now I have the car. And I'm either going to give the car away or donate the car or sell the car. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I asked people to send me their stories, and the 2 or 3 stories I got, I'll try to respond, but they were way too far away. And I'm not looking for somebody who's just, I could use an extra car. I really rebuilt this car and spent way too much money to try and help somebody. But it had to get smogged. And I'm talking about 2 weeks ago. The car had to get smogged to get registered. So there is not a no smogging required here. It is. And I believe it's every couple of years or upon sale of the car, it has to happen. And actually, I think with some, it might be 5 years after you buy a new car, something like that. Whatever it is, you still got to do it. And I still had to do it. So smog still a thing in California. And I don't think that's going to go away. And frankly, I'm okay with that because 99% of my cars, I mean, even my old cars would smog. You still have the exemption for cars built before, I think it's 1976. And the Jay Leno's law, some of you believed, and I did too, that went through, which was cars that were older than 30 years would be exempt. That got repealed already, and it's not the case from what I understand, which is unfortunate because that would take us into the 90s? That would take us into some of those cars, which would be kind of cool. But they also know, California also figured out that, well, that means we're all going to go out and buy 91 Supras and straight pipe the daylights out of those, cut the cats off, and not have to get them smogged. So all the JDM market, which would be huge for cars 30 years old, would be ridiculous. And I understand why they repealed it, but I was, hoping they wouldn't. So bottom line is, all this is about is repealing the state's ability to impose these EV requirements on, let's just say, these emissions mandates and EV mandates on us and on automakers. So bottom line is, that's what this means. The hope is that these stick, and now California can't do the impossible, which is force automakers to only sell EVs in 2035, and which is just ridiculous. And if you watch Tim Kuniskis's recent video, I mean, I think I saw this right on a recent video where he was talking about, well, why they're bringing the Hemi back. Well, you've got a car with a margin like this, exactly what Tim was saying, versus a car with a margin like this, which I believe he's talking about the EVs. Well, why wouldn't we rather sell those? So everybody wins. And frankly, I know we hate the e-torque, but with the e-torque system and all the new technology and hybrid stuff coming out, there's no reason why we can't get to a place of sanity, which is all I want. And it's not about me crapping on the left or the right, or it's picking a side on my YouTube channel, because I would never do such a thing and light my comment section on fire. But I'm looking for a place where we can have a middle ground and not be stuck in some ridiculous, impossible to achieve EV mandates in states like this that do end up affecting the rest of the country, because automakers aren't going to make cars just for certain states and other states not. They could never, ever make a profit. They couldn't stay in business. So with that, let me know your thoughts on this stuff. Hopefully that clarified everything for you, or maybe I confused you even more, because Lord knows there's a lot of confusion out there. But go and do your own research, do your own reading, and if you're an EV believer to a crazy extent and think that it's the future and everything else, well, just dig a few pages deeper into Google and realize that these things aren't saving the planet. They're absolutely not. And if they were, I'd be the first one to say, hey man, that's the answer. But it's not the answer. So with that, everybody, please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.